So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Pomegranate podcast. Aston Villa 0, Newcastle United 3. Could have been Newcastle United 6, Newcastle United 7. You name the number, really. Difficult game to talk about because, like if you were to go into this game and you were to talk about things going wrong early. The one thing you would say is don't concede at St. James's Park within the first 90 seconds, and then we do. The goal itself, look, we can talk about it. It's a pretty good finish from inside the area, but pretty much kind of masters of our own downfall, giving the ball away. Anthony Gordon finishes it. We spoke about it. Gordon and Isak, they were an absolute thorn in our side, even when it was 11 versus 11. For the whole lot of the first half. It was a really strange game. Then after that, Villa tried to get back into it. We didn't really have many chances. We got up to the edge of their area and stuff like that. We had a couple of shots. We didn't really test Dubravka at all. And it was 11 versus 11. And then I suppose the part of the match that everybody's going to really talk about is the Duran sending off. Had a huge bearing in the game. In real time, I couldn't understand what everybody was giving out about. When it was slowed down afterwards, the commentators I was listening to, I don't know what stream you guys were listening on. I was listening on I was watching on Premier Sport 2 here in Ireland, and I don't know who it was. Was it Michael Bridges? I think might have been the former Leeds and Sunderland striker. Might have been the co-commentator. He seemed to just think that Duran should get 10 games. It's just I'm being facetious when I say that, but he thought that it was, this is a reckless, completely disgraceful and reckless altogether. He was saying that he has 4 or 5 or 6 steps to slow down, and he jumps into his back and everything. He was lucky he didn't give him studs in the head. I don't know. Did I see something completely different? There's a certain thing called inertia and momentum, I suppose, more so than anything else. And I felt a lot of Duran's momentum. The first one, there was absolutely nothing he could do about. If Anthony Taylor is sending him off for the first alleged stamp, there's nothing he can do about that. He gets caught underneath Duran. Duran's ankle actually buckles at that stage. There was no way he meant to stand at him. Then afterwards, his other leg is in the air. He has to bring it down somewhere. He comes down on top of the player. Could he have tried to move it to the right or the left? When you slow it down to frames and frames and frames, you absolutely say, yeah, he could have, but there's no way you can do that with regards to momentum. But the thing for me is when it's given, you talk about intent, and look, we've seen this time and time again. Remember Curtis Jones getting sent off, I'd say around this time last year, for a tackler when he went over the ball. And they talk about intent, and it was the speed at which he went into the tackle, misjudged it over the ball. Did he intend to get that person in the shin? Impossible to know, but they gave him the red card. This one, Anthony Taylor gives the red card, and then VAR backs him up. And that to me is a bit. Look, I suppose there's enough in it that when you see it slowed down, if you convince yourself that there's massive intent there, you're going to give the red card, you're going to uphold it. But the problem here is that the only person who knows whether he intended it was Duran. The only person who knows whether they actually intended to do that is Duran. I don't think it was a red card. I think it was. I think it was genuinely the way Shar ends up and the way that Duran comes over him. I know there's probably going to be a lot of Newcastle fans who would say claret and blue glasses. I'm trying to talk about this as objectively as I possibly can. I've said I think once it goes to VAR, I don't think there's any way VAR can overturn it. There's no way they can. Absolutely no way they can overturn it. Anthony Taylor originally gives the throw-in, then comes back, waits, gives the red card, then it goes to VAR, then it's corroborated that it is, or it's confirmed that it's a red card. And I don't think there's any way VAR can overturn it, as I said before. I think, we talk about good process, all that kind of stuff. We say it mockingly and jokingly a lot of times on this podcast. If the referee is hell-bent on saying there's intent there, we want the referee to be able to ref the games as well. I don't think there's any... If he goes to a screen at the side a million times, I don't think he changes his mind there because he's given the red card. It's not brilliant for Villa because, as I say, Villa are down to 10 men and the game was over as a contest once we went down to 10 men. Being a goal down to 10 men, game was over as a contest. Absolutely was a non-entity then for the next, 60 odd minutes, including injury time. And Villa have to stop doing that. Villa have to stop succumbing to poor situations. Look, it's difficult to say because Newcastle are a fine outfit, but Villa go down to 10 men and there's just nobody, again, and I've said this 1,000,001 times, there's no one who can drag them up off the floor. There's no one who can galvanize or rally the troops on the field. There isn't that type of leader there. There's other leaders there. There's leaders who give 100%, who can lead by doing penguin in the top corner or whatever. But there's no fire and brimstone leader there. I've said for a while that it would be nice to have one because, like you talk about the Premier League is built on it. It's like, again, that's the shame in this whole thing. You go to Newcastle. What's that? The third time in the last 3 years that we've gone to Newcastle. Something hasn't gone our way, or we've had an injury or something like that. There's been a catastrophic incident or catastrophic decision or whatever that's led to Villa being a goal down and compounding misery. And then, it's Newcastle's playground. That to me is and look, I think it's highlighted by the Bruno Guimaraes goal that was ruled off. It was chalked off because of handball. Like, that ball is crossed across the box. Everybody tries to get out of the way of it. Probably fine. Ball comes across the box again, second time. Ezri Konsa turns, kicks it right across his goals. Bruno Guimaraes hits off his hand, goes into the back of the net. Like, not good defending. No bit of composure. And I know they've been run ragged, and it's the 80-something minute. They've been run ragged, and they're tired legs, there's tired bodies, there's tired minds. But, from a leadership point of view, and the fact that these guys seem to, when they want to be, or when their tails are up, when the game is going their way, they're so composed that almost playing the ball around on their own goal line. When something like that happens and Konsa turns around, boots it off Guimaraes, and we get lucky, but for the grace of it hitting him in the arm, hits him in the head, goes into the back of the net. It's a calamitous goal. It's a laughing stock goal. It's a really embarrassing goal. I think, regardless of whether it was ruled off or not, I do think it was poor defending. I think it was lackluster. There was a tinge of embarrassment to it for me. But the big thing is, it smacked of no leadership. It smacked of no one being able to put their foot in it and go, damage limitation here, guys. Damage limitation. Our goal difference isn't hectic. We're shipping goals this season. We're not scoring as many goals as we did last year. I thought there was some questionable decisions from Unai Emery in this game. I thought taking off Tielemans, and I think probably Unai, and once again, I think Unai probably saw the writing on the wall, maybe. Look, I don't know whether it is. He's going to always say he was there to win it, and he probably was there to win it. We go down to 10 men. You take off Youri Tielemans and you leave Onana on. Take off Kamara then later on, you leave Onana on. I thought Onana was distinctly average, even when we were 11 on 11 today. Didn't think he was great. I think the right substitution was, or they took off Morgan Rogers at one stage, and I think that was the right substitution. He made that lovely run, and where he lays the ball off to Watkins, and Watkins gets fouled. how Anthony Taylor brings it back for the previous one when Watkins gets fouled closer to goals. I don't know. Once again, that's a question for Anthony Taylor. Yeah, I'm not going to criticize the substitutes that came on too much. They're coming into an absolute hornet's nest there. But like the big thing for me is, I think like the leadership aspect was just not there on the field. And I think one of the few players that was actually taking the ball was trying to make forward passes with it and was trying to unlock a defense, and was pretty industrious and was chasing players back was Yuri Tielemans. So if arguably you could say from a leadership point of view, he's leading by doing was probably the best out there, but he gets taken off. And look, maybe you and I's managing his minutes, I don't know, but I didn't see what he offered over Onana other than Onana's space clogging ability. Because Onana I thought was poor enough today. Thought he wasn't great. He was fine. Like on the greater scheme of things, once we go down to 10 minutes, I don't think anybody was great. But Onana was probably in there to do a job on Joe Linton. Joe Linton scores a goal towards the end of the game. I'm trying to even think if Onana was on the field, I think at that stage. Yeah. Like it just didn't work. What worked for our midfield against Man City did not work today. And it didn't work today because we go 1-0 down after 90 seconds. Whatever else about the sending off, which I think, in my view, and I know, look, as I say, I'm open to criticism for claret and blue glasses. The caveat in this is that if they're sending him off for intent, there's no way to know, and I think it's just a silly rule. But I can absolutely, I've no problem once Anthony Taylor pulls out the red card. I've no problem with VAR upholding it because it's clear they're never going to overturn that. Whether that's an issue in itself is open for you guys to discuss in the chat room. But if I'm expecting something from a situation I know isn't going to change, well then, it's bigger fool me. That's kind of my view on it. But the early goal was the killer. The early goal was what gave them the impetus that they needed. After that, I think our tight midfield, our 5 midfield was pretty redundant. We needed to get an early goal back. We didn't. Then with the sending off, I think playing, having 2 holding midfielders in there for me was just, if we're trying to get back into the game, it was never going to work. Like we played a good 9 to, I think it was about 10 to 12 minutes with Morgan Rogers playing up top just before halftime, so we could get in, we could regroup, and we could make the substitution. Rogers didn't help us when he was playing up top. He was a bit more effective when he went out in the left wing, but he comes off then again. So does John McGinn. Look, it was a disappointing performance today. From the off, we can talk about the sending off in a silo. It's a discussion on its own. It needs to be had. It's a discussion as to whether it was a sending off. I think universally across the neutral fan base as well, I think a lot of people are looking at this going, where can he go? What can he do with regards to this? If you're talking about player welfare and stuff like that, and you slow it down to all the frames, and you discern that there's intent, well then VAR are never ever going to turn that over. And look, that's a conversation for another day. I don't think that it was a red card. I do think that Fabian Schär would be very sore after it. I'd like clarification on what people feel he was supposed to have done in that instance, or where he was supposed to have gone. That's fine. But for me, the killer for this whole game was the opening 90 seconds when we go 1-0 down. We haven't been as good as clawing back from positions of losing this year. And going down 1-0 in the first 90 seconds for me is very, very, very concerning. It's happened quite a lot this year. It's happened quite a bit this year. Being behind the 8 ball within the first 5 to 6 minutes, or conceding just before halftime, or conceding just after halftime. The regular Aston Villa stuff. We're 3 decades looking for a leader that can galvanize a team and have a team that's sturdy in the first 15, the last 15, and the 2 15s before and after halftime. We're not really sturdy in those. We never traditionally have been, and this year we've gone back to being unsturdy in those areas again. It's very difficult to come back from being 1-0 down after 90 seconds against a team like Newcastle. And then it gets compounded by a red card, whether people believe it was or it wasn't. So there's a lot of talking points in this game. Most of them occur in the first half. The second half was a non-entity. It was, an onslaught. It was wave after wave after wave after wave. There was no galvanization from the team. The team looked bereft at times. McGinn passing the ball away. I think they had one ruled out for Isak being offside. It was, because Martinez comes out and Isak was in line with Ezri Konsa, but the goalkeeper wasn't in the goal, so there was only one person back, and then he taps it into the back of the net, and the goal is ruled out. But I think it was that one that comes from a horrendous pass backwards from John McGinn. So what I'm saying here is that the guys that you go to for leadership, for solace, again, they're very prone to making mistakes when they're under the cosh or when things aren't going their way. But conversely, when things are going the team's way, they're absolutely brilliant. They're some of the best players on the ball. They're some of the most composed people. But the composure goes out the window. And the team needs to learn that. That's the disappointing part for me. Sending off, as I say, the sending off is a completely different conversation. The disappointing part is, for me, is the 30 years of trying to watch Aston Villa Football Club, where they some piece of adversity hits them, and then they don't regroup, they don't galvanize, and they don't move forward from it. And what happens is it just gets compounded by mistake after mistake after mistake, and we end up kicking the ball off a fella and it goes into the back of the net, albeit being ruled out. So it's not a good day at the office. Not a good day at the office. Players were shell shocked after the goal. Players were let down after going down to 10 men. Whether by the goalkeeper, whether by the referee or by the player, whichever side of the coin you're on, whether you think it is a goal or a red card or not. And then nobody really stood up to the plate afterwards. There was no swashbuckling performance. There was no one that was able to break from structure and cause something to happen to create an attempt, a chance, something that the team could build on. And then, after the red card, it was a case of how many goals would Newcastle win by. And that's worrying. That's a worrying thing for Aston Villa. Albeit that we very well could regroup again. We play against Brighton on Monday night. It's going to be done without Matty Cash, and it's going to be done without John Duran. So we'll see what that brings. If that brings us better fortune, if the team are can regroup after that. But this is another kind of galling loss, and we've lost in some very silly ways this season. Blowing the leads against the lead against Forest in the last 7 minutes. Not good for team mindset. Going down to 10 men after 36, 37 minutes in this game, conceding a goal early and going down to 10 men. Not good for team mindset. The team weren't able to dig in there. And I'm not saying they should have been, but I would have liked to have seen somebody put their head above the parapet and see it. And we just haven't seen that in 30 years. This is more commentary on traditional Aston Villa, habitual Aston Villa. The fact that Aston Villa just they never seem to have that person who can rally them around something around hardship and maybe squeak out a 1-1 when they shouldn't have. You see Liverpool go down to 10 men against Fulham, and Liverpool are an absolutely brilliant outfit. Don't get me wrong. Arne Slack just goes wild. Essentially plays 3 at the back and plays everybody up top, forces Fulham to go back. I'm not saying that we do that against Newcastle, but somebody took a decision, they took control of it, and they went to it. They went for come what may. Liverpool go out and win that game. In this instance, we put Rodgers into the false 9, played him up top, floundered around for 10 minutes while we waited to get in at half time. We bring on Ollie Watkins, and nothing really changes. We take off Yuri Tielemans and nothing really changes. So I think players, I think management, I think referee all have equal talking points, all have equal blame. I think an awful lot with this game today, because you can't concede within the first 90 seconds. I don't think it's a red card, and some of the substitutions and some of the changes in tactics, I'm kind of like, more than me, Unai. But I'll be surprised if this makes this massive difference to how we're going to play and how we're going to get back into the game if this does work and ultimately proved not to. So onwards towards Brighton on Monday night, and we will be back with a preview, team sheet tantrums, and post-match for the Brighton game as well. go away and lick our wounds for this one and see what happens in the rest of the games, in the later kickoffs, should I say. And we'll be back again with more podcasts later on. So thanks a million for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.